Wait 1 or 2 more minutes. Actually, we're not going to wait because we've only got 45 minutes. Because if you've been to one of these before, this is an action-packed 45 minutes of demonstrations, hijinks, comedy, questions, answers, all of that good stuff. So why don't we get going? So today's platform live demo of Orchestry is going to be all around our guest management capabilities. If you've been to any of these before, you know that the first one we did was a terrible, terrible kind of show because it was me trying to demo all of Orchestry within 45 minutes. And it was essentially like watching some strange Australian man do a demo in 3 times speed. So we've stopped doing that. And we've concentrated on some Orchestry features. Last time we did this, we had Dave talk all around Copilot readiness. So if you didn't attend that demo, make sure you reach out to us and we can send you that recording. But today we're going to talk about all of our guest management feature. We know that lots of organizations have real significant challenges managing guests within your environment. And this is really becoming more of a challenge, particularly from a security perspective, from a licensing perspective, but also if you're trying to get ready for Copilot, right? We see a lot of organizations have some pretty significant challenges with managing guests. Luckily, we have a whole ton of features and a whole ton of capabilities that we can help you with that with Orchestry, again, without having to buy any of those additional Microsoft licenses that you might be looking at. Okay, so my name is Michael Basarik. I am the CEO, one of the founders, and the janitor here as well. So do a little bit of everything. You have me for the next 45 minutes. Again, if you have any questions, have any comments, please feel free to use the chat functionality. We try to make these as interactive as possible. You'll probably see me going back and forth, making sure that I can see what's going on in the meeting chat. But really and sincerely, view this as a time for you to ask your questions. We're more than welcome to answer these as well. It's much more interesting than me just talking for 45 minutes as well. A little bit around Orchestry. So we are a security, governance, and adoption platform for Microsoft 365. We are really trying to help you make value and make sense in a lot of cases of Microsoft 365 with a whole range of capabilities. Again, we are about 5 years old, so one of the new players to this space. But I think what you'll find with Orchestry, you'll see, is quite different than a lot of the other products out there. We really concentrate on user experience. We really concentrate on making sure that we have some really powerful capabilities. And the other thing you'll find as well is Orchestry is a little bit different, that it's not just the governance tools for IT admins, but it's also a tool for your end users. And the reason for that is we firmly believe that the only way to have true governance at scale is to get your end users, your content owners involved in that process. And you'll see that as I go through the guest management features as well, because one of the things we do allow you to do is create a really beautiful experience of allowing your end users to request guests. And we'll show you all of that stuff as well. Why did we create Orchestry? So lots of different reasons. I think if you are a Microsoft 365 admin, you know that it is a pretty thankless task. So many capabilities, stuff constantly changing, people constantly complaining. You're having to do all of these things. And of course, we love Microsoft 365. We think the platform is amazing, but there's also gaps within there. And what we're really trying to do is address, a lot of the common challenges and a lot of the gaps that we see that customers and organizations have. So things like lack of visibility and a direction, it's really difficult to understand what you should be doing in Microsoft 365. Getting the data out of it can also be really, really difficult. Lots of customers come to us because they simply want to understand the type of content that they have, the type of users that they have in a way that's simple, robust, and also powerful. But again, that can be difficult unless you're writing PowerShell scripts and everything else. We know as an IT admin, of course, as well, if you're working on that side, you're just really, really busy, right? Lots of end user requests. You're trying to change things. You're trying to talk to your people. Again, it can be really, really difficult. The other big thing for us is also around governance. We know that governance is really important to make sure that you have an environment that works well, both for your organization, but also for your end users. We love the concept of self-service, but we also know there has to be a balance between those governance rules. And again, out of the box in Microsoft 365, it can be a little bit difficult to implement governance. It's spread around different products and different systems and so forth. So again, we try to make that a bunch easier. Of course, you want to make sure that you're secure and compliant. And the other thing, and I'm sure you might have heard this phrase before, co-pilot and AI seems to be something that people utter every now and then these days, if not every single moment of every single day. It's a lot of confusion around how do we get ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot? How do we implement AI effectively in Microsoft 365? And again, Orchestry can help you in all of those challenges as well. Not going to talk about that today, though. Again, if you are interested, have a look at last week's or last time. I think we do these every 3-week session, and we talked all about that as well. So Orchestry, it's a platform, sits on top of Microsoft 365, gets installed directly into your tenant. You keep all of your content. It's all fully secure. We've got lots and lots of different capabilities. I think we've gone through most of these in the previous demos. And today we are going to talk all around guest user management. All right. And get engaged. So feel free to ask questions. Just put them within the chat there. We will get you some answers as soon as possible. All right, so let's set the stage, kind of what we've heard around managing guests. And I want to start off with, we call it a horror story, but really it's a very typical story we see in a lot of organizations. So we have lots of different customers. This is one from a while ago, a 500 user organization using Microsoft 365. They enabled guests because, again, it's typically one of the ways to enable that external collaboration. It's also the default kind of admin tenant setting for a lot of organizations. So you might have guest access enabled and you don't even know it. Enabled guests, they had over 2,200 guests, and they just left it there, right? They didn't know what was going on. No one had time to review these guests or look at these things. They put in Orchestry straight away. They knew they had 2,200 guest accounts. Straight away, we can tell you the activity of guests. So they found that more than 75% of guests hadn't logged in for over a year. They also found some really interesting things, which is really common. First thing they found was 3 guests from domains that were competitors that have access to various teams. They don't really know how those guests got in there, but they definitely shouldn't have been there. So that was something that we managed to uncover really, really quickly with our unique domains report. They also found that they had 150 guests in workspaces from previously blocked domains. We see this all of the time. And what typically happens is you enable guest access, people stream in maybe from everywhere, from Gmail or Hotmail or whatever else. And IT admin's like, oh dear, we need to shut these domains off. You do that, but of course, M365 doesn't then go back and retroactively clean out those guests. So this is a really common thing that we find. But again, they found they had all of these guests from previous domains that they had to clean up. The other thing which we find, which is really common and definitely sneaky, is around this. We find in a lot of organizations that if an employee is leaving, what they might do is actually add their own personal email account as a guest account to that team, and then they leave the organization. So they can still get access to some of that content through that guest account that they have that belongs to them personally. But what happens typically is if you don't have any understanding, IT will go in, they'll do the process of removing the official company account, but we find that the employee still has access to this. We see this all the time within organizations. And again, with Orchestry, they managed to clean up 1,500 guest accounts in 30 days. They sent out all of the reviews to their users. I'll show you how all of that looks like because it's pretty neat. But again, it was really quick and easy for them to do. Some pain points, then we'll get rocking and rolling here into a demo. So the typical pain points that we hear around guest management. First thing is people have no idea what guests exist within their environment. They also have no idea where their guests came from and how they got in. Also, really difficult, or it can be difficult to understand what guests have access to. A lot of organizations they want to review guests, but they don't want to pay for some of the additional licensing like P2, or if you want additional capabilities, Entra Governance ID. There's an Entra Governance ID for guests now as well. But the big thing that we always find with a lot of companies is they want more control over that guest request process beyond a simple on-off. And most organizations are either building their own apps or some sort of form or everything else through there. Again, it can be costly and prohibitive to do that as well. The other thing that we've also seen, which is really interesting, is this kind of backdoor idea. So this idea that guest access is disabled at the group level, but it's shared externally via SharePoint. Again, if you're interested in how we control this within Orchestry from a provisioning perspective, we give you that ability to say, hey, a guest cannot be added either at the group level or at the SharePoint site level. But we see this a lot, that a lot of organizations think they don't have access, but they're allowing external links and external access through the SharePoint site as well. The other big thing as well, particularly for larger organizations, a lot of guests get added where they shouldn't be. Again, because you just have the email, a person's going in, adding a guest, maybe they put in the wrong email account, all of a sudden now they have access to something they have. This also drives people crazy. The person who's invited the guest actually has no idea if the person's redeemed the invite. And if they haven't redeemed the invite, you can't resend them an invite either. So it's super problematic because then the person's like, well, invited this guest. The person that I invited never got the email. I can't invite them again. I can't remove them. So now I have to go to IT, and IT has to do it through Azure. So it can be really, really problematic as well. So lots of other issues as well through here. Okay, so what do we do within Orchestry before we go into a demo here? First of all, full guest reporting, really powerful set of capabilities around reporting around guests, who your guests are, what they have access to, when was the last time they were active, did they redeem that invite, all of that good stuff. So you can instantly understand all of the guests within your organization, understand what they have access to, and also understand if they're active or not, which can be a really powerful thing to help you clean your guests up. The other thing is around guest provisioning. Again, you know that we do an incredible job of helping you provision your teams, your groups, your Viva Engage communities, your SharePoint sites, all of that good stuff. We also have capabilities around controlling guest provisioning. So again, instead of a user going in and just adding a guest, they can go through Orchestry. As part of this process, we can even capture additional information that you want to capture as an organization as part of a guest. Company, country, first name, last name, all of that sort of good stuff as well. You can even control the names of your guests as well. And finally, guest reviews. The other part of this is not just provisioning, it's also the guest review process. So again, if you are an organization that has many, many guests, you can set up guest reviews. Pretty simple functionality, but really powerful. And the idea with this guest review is you can say, hey, if you have guests in your particular team or your SharePoint site or your group, what we're going to do is every month, we're going to send you a beautiful notification. We're going to tell you what guest you are, when was the last time they logged in, and you can just click on keep or remove and go through that process. Fantastic way to, again, offload that responsibility of managing guests to those workspace owners, whether they're teams, SharePoint sites, or groups. All right. Enough talking, good people. Let us go and jump into Orchestry here. There we go. Let me know if you can see this. I will just keep going unless people say that they can't, but we'll go and rock and roll here. All right. So as you can probably see, this is Orchestry. So again, if you haven't seen Orchestry, we're an app. Sits on top of Microsoft 365, lots of powerful capabilities here. Again, we've been through our recommendations engine. Really quickly, the recommendations engine also has a whole bunch of recommendations around guests, but what we're most interested in today is talking about our guest management features. So the first thing is around our guest reporting, right? Here, I can click on my guest dashboard and see this beautiful dashboard full of information about all of my guests that I have within my environment. I can see exactly how many guests I have, how many workspaces have guests in them, how many guests have access to multiple things. So this is a really interesting report, which actually show you if the guest has access to more than one group and more than one team. We also show you how many guests don't have access to anything. This is a really interesting thing as well, because you'll find that if I click on this report, there's a bunch of guests that don't have access to anything at all. The other thing which I really like, and I'll start off with this, is our unique domains report. This one is really powerful. And the reason for that is we'll show you all of the different domains that your guests come from, how many associated accounts there are, when was the last time someone was added from that particular domain, the last time they logged in, and all of the different groups that that domain has access to. And again, this is a demo environment, so you're going to see a bunch of really crazy, terrible domains through here, but it's a really interesting approach because again, you can instantly see, hey, do we have a bunch of these domains that maybe shouldn't be within here, for example. And of course, just like any of our reports, you can filter, you can sort, you can even export any of this data through here as well. Back to the dashboard, a couple of other really powerful things. Again, guests recently requested. This access violation is probably one of my favorite ones though as well. So the access violation report is not just a report, but there's also a bunch of intelligence built in here that helps you understand and identify guests that are in places where they shouldn't be. So for instance, we can see here, David Broussard from one of our great partners, Cambay, he's a guest within our environment, but because he comes from the gmail.com domain, his violation is that he comes from a block domain. So again, we can get around that issue that I talked about before, that you've blocked a domain subsequently, but again, we're not going to go back in time and clean that up. We can show that as well. We can also show you, for instance, someone like Joy here. So again, we can see that Joy has got access to a particular group, but she shouldn't have access to it all. And if I click onto here, this is Joy's account. We can see the domain that they came from. We can see the date created. We can see last time they signed in through here as well. And we'll even give you notices and notifications that, hey, Joy has access to this particular workspace, but she shouldn't as well. And of course, with Orchestry, from any user, I can go in and I can resend the invitation, or I can go and remove the person from that workspace through here. So it's not just a reporting tool, we can also remediate all of these things for you as well. Let's go and click on all the guests. We'll talk about lifecycle status in a second, but if I click on all the guests, again, this is a complete view of all of your guests that you have in your environment, the domain that they came from, the last time they were added, the last time they logged in, how many days inactive they have, how many groups they have access to, right? All of this good stuff is all available here for you, ready to go. If I go and view a particular person, so let's say Dave Franco here, again, I can see the domain, the last time they logged in, how it was created with, who it was created by, and I can see exactly which groups they have access to through here. And I've got actions here like resending the invite or removing them from the workspace as well through here. I can view them in Azure. I can delete them from Azure. And if there's any lifecycle capabilities, we'll talk about this in just a moment, I can also see the full lifecycle of this, how the guest was created, when they were granted access, and the history as well, if they're doing any guest reviews through here. The other type of report, which is really useful and probably the one that most of our customers find the most powerful, is what's called our recommended guest deletion report. So instead of you having to go through and understand who these guests are and what they have access to, again, we're actually going to say, hey, you've got a bunch of guests in your environment, but we recommend that these ones should be deleted for various reasons. So we can see here that Alberta here, again, can go in and say, hey, we've got a guest through here. We recommend Alberta should be deleted. Why? She doesn't have access to anything and she hasn't redeemed the invite for over 90 days, right? So again, we kind of give you all of these ideas of, you know, we're not just telling you that you should delete these people. We're telling you why we think you should delete them. For instance, David here hasn't got access to anything. He never redeemed that stupid invite and he's from a block domain as well, right? And again, I can instantly delete them, whoops, all through here. I can delete the guests from Azure. And again, we're actually going to delete them from Azure, which is going to remove them from all of the groups and all of the teams as well. So lots and lots of reporting capabilities through here. Couple of questions from Doug Novak. Thank you. Can you see who added the guests? So Doug, we can see who added the guests through Orchestry. If they're adding them out of the box in M365, no, we don't go back in time and track that. The reason for that is a lot of the times those guests have been added many, many months ago. And most of the time the audit log for us doesn't go back that far as well. Another one from Ivan, end users can check whether a guest is already enrolled before us and create a guest account. Yeah, Ivan, let me go through that in just a moment. I'll show you how all of that works as well through here. So again, lots of powerful capabilities. So you put in Orchestry, first thing you typically do, you understand all of your guests. First thing most customers do is they're like, good God, why do we have so many guests? Why do we have so many domains? Why are people where they shouldn't be? But a really nice thing is just being able to go through our recommended actions report and say, yep, this all makes sense, and delete all of these folks as well. So that's great from a reporting perspective. But as you know, at Orchestry, reports are one thing, but reports are kind of useless if we can't actually take action on these pieces as well. And luckily with Orchestry, from a guest perspective, we have two particular policies that we can apply to help you both with the requesting of guests as well as with the review of guests. So let's talk about our guest request process first of all. Orchestry has a powerful capability, which is called a guest request policy. What this allows you to do, it allows you to attach a policy to any team or any existing SharePoint site that you have. And instead of users going adding a guest directly through the native UI, they have to go through the Orchestry UI. And Ivan, this will answer your question here. Just bear with me for about 3 minutes here. As part of this, what we want to say for this guest request policy is we want to allow guests, right? So we're going to say, yep, we want to allow guest access for these particular workspaces. When someone goes and requests a guest, we also want to have a justification. So we want them to say, here's the guest that I want to add and also why. A guest justification is really useful. A lot of times it helps the approver understand why that guest has been added, but also it's really good from a corporate governance perspective. So people just aren't adding a bunch of guests in willy-nilly. They're actually thinking about what they're trying to add and why. The other thing that we also do, which I really love, is we allow you to also capture additional guest details as part of that request. As you know, out of the box, you just put in an email and that's basically it. And a lot of times, if you have tens or hundreds of thousands of guests, you have all of these guest accounts, you're looking for a user, you might know who michael.pisarek@orchestry.com is. But if you're collaborating with organizations where they may have obfuscated names, JK37@nike.com, for instance, you're not going to have JK97 as different than RK42 from the same company. So what we allow you to do as part of this guest request process is choose the additional information that you want to capture. We always capture first name, last name, and email within Orchestry, but you can capture a wealth more additional information through here. Again, job title, department, company, country, all of this sort of stuff as well. And what we do when we capture this information through Orchestry, we are also going to store that information directly into your Azure AD. So again, you can use that information for other purposes to form reporting, for instance, as well. The other thing that we have here, so Ivan, a question, what if we want each guest to provide its own mobile phone? Yep, you can just capture that information through here as well. We've got a mobile phone field as well. The other thing that we also really like is around guest naming. So again, one of the big challenges with guests that we find is if it's just an email address, it's really difficult to know who a guest is. And what we often find with organizations as well is that, they just don't know who these guests are just on email, just on an email address. So what's really nice within Orchestry is just like we allow you to have naming policies for workspaces, so people can instantly see at a team or a SharePoint site and understand what it's for. Imagine being able to have beautiful configured names for your guests. So in this case, we are going to have a guest name. And when someone goes in and fills in our guest request form, and we capture the first name, the last name, their company, their country, all of this sort of good stuff, we're also going to specify the name of the guest. So then in the future, if someone goes and requests this guest or searches for them, they're going to be able to find that guest by the first name, the last name, bracket, guest. So you can instantly see that this person is a guest within your tenant. Really nice, visual, beautiful way to understand that. And then the company field as well. I'll show you how this works in real kind of example because it's super neat. Again, it really makes that process of helping your users understand who those guests are really quickly and really easily. Okay, so we're going to have a policy associated with this. Of course, once a guest gets requested, it has to be approved somehow. Now, there's two ways that we can approve guests in Orchestry. One of the ways is we delegate that approval to workspace owners. So if you trust your owners to add guests and you don't need an additional level of approvals, we can do that within Orchestry. The other way is if you want to have specific users or groups approve these guests as well. So again, what's going to happen in this case is for any workspace that has this policy assigned, the policy approvers will get a notification and then they have to approve the guest through here. And again, we've got guest approvers, we've got myself, we've got Archie. Again, you can have a notification text, which is custom here, which is really, really neat. One of the other things you'll find with Orchestry as well, if you've ever seen it, we know that in a lot of cases, most people don't respond to the first of anything these days, especially notifications from Teams and emails and all of that sort of stuff. You can even set up a notification cadence to say that we're going to send a notification, but we're going to send it once a day for 3 amount of times through here. And we've also got kind of a catch-all. So imagine that our approvers are super busy. They don't approve this guest. I can even escalate this up as well. So lots and lots of different options as well. And then the final thing is, how do we want those approvers to be notified? And of course, either through email or directly within Teams. And again, we've got beautiful ways you can craft these notifications through here. Okay, so how does this work? I can go and attach this policy to any team or any existing workspace. But what's really interesting as well is because you can have multiple policies within Orchestry, you can also attach these policies to your templates. So for instance, an internal project workspace, for instance, might not allow guests. So here we're going to have a guest request policy, which is disabled, whereas something like an external project or a client project, maybe we want to have a guest request process that's approved by owners. So again, you've got a lot of flexibility within here. Okay, how does this look like from the end user perspective, right? So let's imagine that I am an owner of a particular team. So here's my product team 1000 through here, and I want to add a guest. Now, typically, if I want to add a guest, I'm going to click on member. I'm going to hammer in the world's worst email address because, again, we don't actually want to add people. But you notice now that it's not allowing me to add a guest through here. We're blocking that guest access at the group level. So what I need to do is use Orchestry. Now, one of the nice things we do, if you've seen Orchestry before, is you can attach this tab or a web part to a SharePoint site called our Team Information tab. This Team Information tab shows a bunch of information about this particular team, you know, all of the links, how many owners, how many members, how many guests there are, all of that sort of good stuff as well. But if I have an Orchestry policy assigned to it, I can go through the guest addition process through here. So again, really easy for your users. They don't have to go to a separate app. They just go to the team that they're a member of and they can be taken here through Orchestry. So I want to add a guest through here. I'm going to click on the Add Guests button. From here, I can search for existing guests, for instance. So again, I can see all of the existing guests that I want to, but in this case, I want to add a new guest through here. Do we have a Tom Brady? We don't. All right, so let's add Tom here. So I'm going to click on Add New Guest here. Notice now I have to fill in all of this information. So we're going to say Tom.Brady, Patriots. Now, I don't have no idea if this is the Patriots email. I don't think it is. So we're just going to put in a random email through here. Whoops. Even smart enough to make sure we've got a proper email. Perfect. So we're going to put in Tom Brady. Notice I have to capture this information. Why? Because that's what we specified as that policy. Now, again, if you don't want all of these fields, you don't have to, but in this case, we want to capture this. We also want to capture the name of the company through here. A couple of nice things that we do as well, we'll actually pull company names from your Azure AD, so you don't get like 50 different types of spelling of Acme, for example, but we are going to say it's going to be Patriots. Right, so we're going to add Patriots here. Job title, he is quarterback. Oh, I must have had a quarterback before. Department, let's say offense, country, USA, and then the justification. Remember, we are asking why that person wants to be added. So Tom needs access to our project team, okay? We also show the user really beautifully. how we're going to put that name in, and I'm going to click on confirm and add. So notice how easy that is for users. Again, user is going to go and request this guest. Now at this time, for your technical folks, we've created that guest in Azure AD, but we haven't actually added them to anything. Now all I need to do is click on done. At this case, what's going to happen is, because there's an approval process, this guest is going to be in this pending state. So we can see here that Tom here has been requested by Archie. So I'm Archie here, but he's pending approval. So even for your owners, it's a really nice way to understand what guests you have and what their status is through here. Now, because I'm playing every single role within this demo, I'm also an approver of this particular request. But imagine that I'm not the person doing this request, I'm part of IT. IT gets this beautiful notification directly within Teams. Of course, you're also going to get an email as well. And we see that now I have a guest request for 2 people. I have a guest request for John Smith here, which I'm going to approve, and a guest request for Tom as well. Once I click on submit, only then will those guest accounts be added to those particular teams right here. So now you have that control where you can allow your users to go and add or request guests, and now they're going to get added to this particular team and to this particular SharePoint site through here as well. So now we've got no more pending approvals. Let's go back to the team that I have here. Here's my product team. I'm going to click on team information. I'm going to click on users through here. And now I can see that Tom has been added. He's got access enabled for this particular team, but he hasn't redeemed this invite yet, right? So really powerful, really simple, and really, really beautiful. On the reporting side, let's go back and to make sure that this is all not smoke and mirrors, because I know what you folks are like. Let's go into guests, right? Let's see, hey, here's Tom Brady. Here's the domain. Here's when he was added. Let's click on Tom here. We can see exactly that Tom was created on the 30th. He was created with Orchestry. He was created by Archie. I can see exactly what Tom has access to. And if I click on life cycle here as well, I can also see the full history of this as well. I think someone had a question before that. So I can see exactly that Tom was created by Archie at 9:30. Right? And then he was also approved by Archie. Now, I know it looks weird because Archie's doing everything, but I apologize. The last thing you want me to do is to switch between screens because I get confused, you get confused, and everyone gets confused. But hopefully this makes sense. The other thing we also see, which I really like, is that even though Tom has access to this particular workspace, he hasn't redeemed the invite, right? You know, when you add a guest, even though they have access, we send that invite out to people so we can see that as well. So again, really, really powerful capability. And the nice thing I like around this as well is this team information tab. You can add this to all of your existing teams or all of your existing teams, or the web part can be added to all of your existing SharePoint sites to start to control the flow of those guests through here. So if you want to straight away, limit guest creation, make sure that you start capturing that information for guests, make sure that it's all going to be providing this really beautiful experience for your users, you can do that with Orchestry really quickly and really simply. But that, friends, is only one type of policy that we have. So we've talked about the guest requests policy. So hopefully that makes sense. Beautiful experience, lots of flexibility, lots of power. The other type of policy that we also have is a guest review policy. So again, whereas the guest request policy really helps you manage the flow and the influx of new guests coming through, the guest review policy, gives you the ability to review your guests. And this is something that's obviously really, really powerful if you have tens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of guests like some of our customers do, and you want to go through the process of getting your content owners, your workspace owners to review the guests and removing them through here. So let's set one of these up really, really quickly. So again, guest review policy, we're going to say that we're going to have a guest review policy for workspace owners. So we're going to say, hey, we're going to do a guest review. the guest review is going to happen every 90 days. Again, you can have it every 30, every 90, every year, whatever you want to. We're going to send this notification to workspace owners through here. Now, this is the most typical way that you do this. You can send it to specific users. Now, the way or the reason you would use this is maybe you have corporate compliance and they're responsible for reviewing the guests, or maybe IT is responsible for reviewing guests. You can send it to specific users, but more often than not, you send this to your workspace owners because, let's be honest, you folks are busy enough. Just let the owners review their guests and determine whether they want to keep them or not through here. So again, we have our policy approvers here. We have our notification text, of course, which can be customized. We can make this all sorts of craziness through here. We have our notification cadence. And the other thing that we also have is a no action taken. Now, we know some organizations are big fans of the carrot approach. Other organizations prefer the stick. Luckily, with Orchestry, we support both the carrot and the stick approach. So the carrot approach is essentially sending this notification, sending the kind of cadence every so often and making sure that people answer these. The stick approach, you can also say as well, if we send you this notification as a workspace owners, and we're going to send it to you once a day for 3 amount of times, but if you don't answer this, we can do something with this. So one of the things that we can do is we can escalate it. So maybe you want to escalate it to a particular group or a particular user. The other thing we can also do to really automate this process, if this is part of your governance, is say, listen, if we send you out a workspace review, if you don't answer this, after a week, all of the guests are going to be removed, right? All of the non-review guests are going to be removed from that group as well. So it's a really nice way to do this, because again, you might have tens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of Teams and SharePoint sites. You want to do these things in bulk. Well, one of the things you can then do now as well is to say, we're going to send this over to you. We're going to ask you 3 amount of times, but if you don't respond to this, then we're just going to remove all of those guests as well, right? So pretty easy and pretty simple. Same other types of approaches, notification format, all of that sort of stuff as well. So what does this look like? This is a little bit different. We're going to go into our reports area within Orchestry, if you remember before, and we are going to do 1,000 product team here. So let me find that particular workspace here, if I can type. So here we go. So here we have our workspace that we have here, which is just loading. Again, lots of information around guests and everything else that we have through here, page views, all of this sort of good stuff as well. Here we also have a workspace review policy assigned to this. Now, again, you can choose what policies you want. Again, you can have different policies for different types of workspaces. All of this kind of really funky functionality, but you can also force a guest review through here as well. So again, we can force this guest review policy to essentially fire through here, right? Again, you have to suspend your disbelief, people, because I'm playing every single role. Let's imagine that I'm an owner of this workspace and it's been 90 days. Look how beautiful this is. Directly within Teams, I'm going to get a notification through here, right? I can see the guests that we have through here. I can see their status, and I can go through the process now of renewing or removing the guests through here as well. And I can say, well, John Smith, I don't need John in this group anymore. Let's click on that, click on close, click on submit. Again, that's going to happen as well. And again, you can do this for one workspace, all of your workspaces, some of your workspaces. The options are endless through here. So again, that review has now been done. Let's go back to Orchestry. Let's go back to guest management. Let's go back to the dashboard here. Again, you can see, again, with all of your guests as well, their status. So how many are pending review or pending approval or have recently been renewed through here. So if I click on here, I can see that Tom has been renewed. Last review date, October the 30th. This is the workspace that they were reviewed from. Tremendous. Like, you know everything. You don't have to understand what's going on and going through logs and PowerShell script. It's crazy. You don't need to do that. We're going to show you all of that. And if I click on Tom now, again, I can see now on the life cycle, I can see we had the access history, and now we can see I've also had the renew history as well. So a complete overview of all of your guests, when they were created, when they were added, who approved them, and who reviewed them as well. So if you are working in organizations that you need to track all of this information, we are going to do it all for you quickly, easily, and beautifully as well. And the other nice thing around this as well, we have a question. Clifford Smith, will this remove the guest from Entra or just the team? So Cliff, great question. It's going to remove the guest from the team, but then what you can do is quickly go into the dashboard, right? See the recommendations. And if I click on here, it's going to delete the guests from Azure or Entra ID or whatever Microsoft is going to call it next year, essentially. So yeah, you've got both options available through here. What we typically find is, and we're working on another policy, Cliff, as well, that's kind of going to bypass this, where you're going to say, if you've got a bunch of guests that haven't been active for a while, just delete them from Entra ID, and it's going to delete them from all of the groups as well. But hopefully makes sense. But if you do delete a guest through Orchestry, so I'm rambling a bit here. If you do delete a guest through Orchestry, it's actually going to be deleted from Azure as well. So you've got both of those options through here as well. All right, folks, lots to cover. Hopefully that made sense. Lots of exciting stuff. Again, this is a feature we've had for, I think, about a couple of years now within Orchestry. And again, for some organizations, really, really powerful, really, really useful, again, to manage your guests. Okay, let me go back to the presentation here, folks. Let us resume through here and the slide. Okay, so we've talked about, okay, so this is great. How do I get access to all of this? Well, luckily you can. So as you know, we have trials available within Orchestry. They are full 28-day free trials, right? So again, if you want to understand not just your guests, but all of your workspaces, your users, your content, all of that good stuff, we are going to make this instantly available for you. Reach out to us. I think Jess has put the trial for free link directly within here. Again, if you're a customer over 1,000 seats as well, we also offer what we call a managed evaluation. So we're not just going to give you the product and say, good luck with it. We don't want to do that. We will also take you through that process. So again, we call this our managed evaluation process. We'll get you started on Orchestry. You'll speak to one of our wonderful customer success folks to kind of go through 4 sessions. One of them is, or session 4 is all around managing guests. And again, we'll take you through the entire platform as well through here. All right. Hopefully that made sense. I know we got a couple of other questions here. Cliff, hopefully I answered your question about removing them from Entra ID. Ivan, do you plan to have a meeting also about permission management for owners? Good question, Ivan. Maybe you have some inside information from the Orchestry team, but one of the next features that we are looking at is around permission reporting and shared links reporting. Not quite ready yet, but expected in Q1. And I think we're going to have the most powerful and kind of beautiful permission reporting, both on the workspace level, for broken permissions and shared links, as well as, like you mentioned, the ability to send, let's say every month, owners a beautiful, what we call workspace review, saying, hey, here's the users you have, but in addition to that, here's also all of the shared links you have, and here's all of the items that have got broken permissions as well. So that's coming up here in Q1, Ivan. We're working on that at the moment. Not the easiest thing to build, but we think it's going to be super powerful. I got Karen, licensing costs, about $2 per user per month. Minimum seats is about 150 seats, I think. But reach out to the team who can give you some more stuff around licensing. Much cheaper than SharePoint Premium, much cheaper than buying things like Entra ID Governance, which is $7 per person as well through here. Final answer, Steve. If on-premise AD Sync is being used, that normally requires deleting users on the AD side. Does Orchestry have a solution to this? No, we don't. Unfortunately, Steve. Sorry. We don't. We don't do anything with on-prem stuff. We just work within the cloud. But reach out to us and hopefully we can help. All right, folks, 45 minutes. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully you learned something new. Again, we really appreciate your time. Register for our next live demo. I don't know what it's going to be about. Hopefully it's going to be exciting. Hopefully you saw Orchestry in action as well. This was an actual demo. It's not all smoke and mirrors and all of that sort of stuff that we see. That's how the actual product works, how easy and how powerful it can be. Really appreciate your time, everyone. Have a wonderful day. And for everyone in North America, enjoy Halloween tomorrow. And we'll see you in our next live demo series.